Okay. Welcome to Heartfulness Wellness webinars. We've been doing these wonderful webinars, especially for people who are stuck at home with various situations, difficult situations sometimes wonderful situations, but all of us need some help. And what we have seen is these Heartfulness Wellness webinars have been well received on various topics. So we'll continue this during this difficult times of COVID-19 coming up and all these lockdowns happening all over the world, etc., etc. Right? And today our topic is no space and more space, right? Because a lot of people are stuck at home, and it's like so much stuck that they say, "Oh, I need some space for myself. There's too much of encroachment into my space, and it's all like so much shared space that I need to spend time with my significant other, my close family members, etc." Or some situations happen that people are stuck in two different places. They want to be together, but they're not able to be together for more than a month, almost 2 months. Right? Almost like so far that is just too much space between them, and they're feeling disjointed. Yeah. So putting these together, so we want to address these topics, and for this we have a very wonderful being with us today as our panelist. Welcome, Kanchan Kulkarni, and she is a relationship and transformation coach. Right? And her profession is like helping women who are struggling with relationships and various things that are related to one's own self. Right? And then, see, it's like I've seen her testimony, the testimonials on her website. It's awesome. Unapologetically KK.
Yes.
Right? And it's excellent testimonials. And there's so yeah, she really looks like a GPS guide for those folks whom she has mentored, coached, etc. Wonderful. And she has successful practice in Dubai and also in Mumbai, I think. Right, Kanchan?
Yes, that's right.
Yes, and wonderful. And the good thing is she has both good blend of Eastern philosophy and the Western science. Right? So that's a hallmark. And again, welcome, Kanchan. And then let's discuss this important topic that people are looking forward to, how to deal with not enough space in the relationships, but there's no space, and sometimes stuck too far away, and how to deal with the distant relationship. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, first of all, for that lovely introduction. And I'm really happy to kind of be here. Thank you for the opportunity. It's amazing the kind of work the Heartfulness Wellness campaign is doing, reaching out to people, and I think that is definitely the need of the hour. So it's wonderful to have a space where people can talk about things and reach out to those who are struggling emotionally and mentally. I'm extremely passionate about mental health. I feel people still struggle to reach out and understand what they're going through. It hasn't really reached the level of physical health. So when you break your bones, you don't think, should I go to the doctor or should I just suffer and let the bone set whichever way it sets? And if it deforms my hand, well, that's my fate. But unfortunately, where mental health is concerned, we're still at that stage where, because you don't really see a physical reason, even though there are physical symptoms, we're always told to kind of, get through it. Yeah. To be strong, to be resilient, and to find a way through it, because everyone goes through it. Everyone is struggling, and so your struggles aren't any more than someone else's struggles, and therefore, you should just find a way and right. Power through. So it's great.
And funnily enough, you hit a right point there, right? So often in countries like India, it's like mental health or ill health is considered taboo.
Yes,
and really absolutely. Dealing with that is very, very important.
Well, also the taboo adds more stress, because what I find is clients come in and one of the things that they constantly say is, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? What's happening to me? So there's this lack of awareness as to what's going on with them. But there's also this added stress of saying that people are going to judge me because I'm weak somehow, because I couldn't handle it. and they're handling it. I understand that other people must be struggling with their relationships. I understand other people must be struggling with other things in their life, and they're not going to a therapist or a coach, and the fact that I'm going to a coach means I'm somehow weaker. And they don't see that as a sense, as a sign of strength. And I feel like it takes a lot of courage to go out and ask for help and say, I'm struggling, can you please help me? So that narrative really needs to change for people to see that it is a source of strength. You need to have immense strength to say, I'm not ready to accept this life. I'm not ready to accept this misery, this pain. I want something better for myself. I deserve to live a better life, and I'm going to go out there and find a way to make my life better. And if I can't do it myself, I'm going to find somebody who can help me. So that's definitely something that has started. It does need to go a lot faster than it is right now, but at least it's moving.
Very glad to hear that. Yes, and first thing, right? So often right now, because of COVID-19 situation, right? So a lot of folks are stuck in a small spaces, even though it's a 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, doesn't matter. Still a small space, and they're stuck with each other in a small family, right? And then yes, and that can stress people out. Too much of presence with other person, though we love those people. Right? And this is something that we need to deal with. So, what are your suggestions?
Well, the most important thing is to understand what you're struggling with first. Because if you don't understand what your problem is, you're not really going to be able to find a solution that's going to work for you. So I could give general tips, but what I find is that they don't work for everybody. So the most important thing to start with is, what exactly is the problem? You define the problem. So people who have come to me, the new clients that I have seen in the last 2 months since the lockdown, have always come and said, I have anxiety and I have stress because I am in lockdown. And I was like, okay, what exactly is your problem? What do you not have food? Do you not have shelter? Are you not safe? Is your family not safe? What exactly are we dealing with here? No, all that is okay. Okay, what is the problem? And I just don't have my own space. It's like, how much space would you need? Are we talking about physical space? Are we talking about mental space? Mm-hmm. So there's a huge distinction here, because when you tell people you're free to, in Dubai, the lockdown has eased out, and you tell people, go out of your house. And it's like, no, I don't want to get sick. Okay, so you make them realize that they're making a choice. You're not going out, not because you're stuck at home, because you're safe at home. It's a safe place. And the people, these are the same people you absolutely love. So what exactly are you talking about? Because we can make a problem like a big scary monster. So if you can imagine a monster that could be like a tiny little toy, but what you are seeing is this great big shadow on the wall, and it's huge, and it's like, it's going to eat you up, and it's scary, and you don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's what you're reacting to, because you've made this big assumption that I'm not okay. I have, people are interfering in my life too much. I have no space at all. I need something, but it's all vague, And then when you say, okay, what would you like? The first answer is always, I don't know. Well, if we don't know, then how will we get the solution? So whatever solution I give you, you'd be like, no, I don't want that. Okay, then what do you want? I don't know. Okay, how about trying this? No, I don't want this. So it's almost like getting in a car and saying, I want to go somewhere, and you don't know where you're going. So you could drive aimlessly and endlessly and reach nowhere. Or you could get to a place and then decide, this is not where I want to be. It's just a waste of time and energy. So the most important thing, and the first step in any situation like this, is to define the problem. Especially in times like this, where we have lost access to all our coping mechanisms. So people have coping mechanisms which are like, when I'm too stressed out, I go out and I meet my friends for coffee. Or I go out and I go out and watch a movie. Or I do this, or I go to work, and just going to work kind of, allows me to focus on something. That's my me time. I love my job. I enjoy what I do. And now you've taken everything away. So there's no outlet. There's no way you can kind of go and do something to release the stress that you're feeling that the pandemic is causing. And so you have to have an outlet. And then you start to have the outlet with the people who are closest to you. And then you start finding problems where there aren't any. So it's all also about perception and perspective. You know, you will start getting irritated for things. Maybe you are already irritated because you're looking for an outlet. But that's the closest person in front of you is going to bear the brunt of that frustration you're feeling. So defining the problem actually allows us to see what we're dealing with. That's the first thing. The next thing we go into is talking about, okay, great, we've defined the problem, and people are great at defining their problems. I mean, they can talk for hours, they can just go on, you know, this and that and that and that. And then you say, okay, great, fine, I've got a good idea of what you're dealing with. I can totally get you. And then what would you like to do? What is the solution that you would like? I don't know. I want things to go back to the way they were. How is that going to happen? So it's an unrealistic expectation. You're creating a situation in your life. You're creating emotions that don't really need to be there because you're asking for something that you cannot get. So this says, well, then I'm just going to sit and sulk. It's like, all right, go ahead and do that. You know, so when you make them realize that they're being unrealistic, they're being unreasonable, they kind of get an idea of what they're doing. Doesn't always help, but then we kind of find a way back to where are you at the moment and where would you like to go? After that, you have to have an action plan, because it's all great knowing the problem, knowing, you know, what you need to do with the solution, but you have to do it. So I have clients where I say, you know, they'll complain. They're like, oh my God, COVID, I'm just sitting at home. I'm eating all the time. My husband's a great cook. I had a client who said, my husband's a great cook. He keeps, you know, he has nothing to do now. He keeps cooking all day long. It's like, do you not enjoy his cooking? No, I love it. But the problem is I keep eating and then I don't exercise the way I used to and I'm gaining weight and that's really annoying me and I don't want to do that. It's like, stop eating the food. It's like, that I can't do that. That'll hurt his feelings. You know, so there is so much that's going on that just creates an unnecessary situation because you're making an assumption that telling your husband that, you know, can we have a healthier menu? Like, I know you need to cook and cooking gives you joy, but can we have a healthier menu? And then maybe sit down and have that conversation and say, you know, he could turn around and say, yeah, great. What would you like to eat? But we don't do that. So we react to our thoughts. And what I tell my clients is that the emotion that you're feeling, emotions are chemicals that are released in the body based on how the brain perceives a certain situation. So if we go back to fight, flight, there's also another situation called freeze. And that's going back to the caveman. And there was a study that I was reading that relates that to emotions in today's day and how we deal with it. And so fight, flight, and freeze is now converted to, if you are in a flight mode, why did we have these emotions? Because we were supposed to be protected from danger. So the idea of, in caveman, you know, you had dangerous animals out there. You could be eaten and killed at any time. So you want to either run, hoping that you can run faster than the animal. You want to fight if you think that you're stronger than the animal. And freeze is basically you're completely helpless, that there's no point. So when that relates to today's emotions, the flight is anxiety. You expect the worst case scenario, and anxiety is the only emotion that brings about the kind of physical symptoms because we are thinking about the future. You can never get anxious thinking about something in the past. And that's because the reason is the past has already happened. So there's no what if scenario there. But anxiety is about the future, right? What if this goes wrong? And what if that goes wrong? So you start feeling very anxious. The fight really has to do with aggression. So you perceive a danger or a threat in front of you, and you decide to deal with it with aggression. You're going to fight. So the minute you think your husband or your wife is going to come in and start criticizing you or complaining, you get ready for a fight. You're like, I know she's going to come in and she's going to say something about my cooking. And so I'm just going to, you know, your body language changes. The body is flooded with the emotion that I need to fight. So it comes out as aggression. you're preparing to defend yourself by attacking. And the freeze actually turned around to be connected to helplessness. And the way that relates to people is people who feel, what can I do? This is my fate. These are the cards that I was dealt. This is my karma. I can't do anything about it. And in all of those three things, you realize that that is how people deal with all situations. So a person who is constantly feels helpless is going to be in this situation and say, what can I do? I have to suffer through this, till it ends. Somebody is going to just get into an argument and talk about, as I said, I want this COVID to end. It's stupid. This lockdown doesn't make sense. It should go away. Nothing is going to happen to me. And then you have people who constantly worry about what's going to happen. If I go out, if I touch something, what if I get sick? What if my family gets sick? So you've really got so many underlying issues that the surface issue, which is what I always start with. So the client comes to me and is like, why are you here? And they'll give you one issue, which is their surface issue. And they wouldn't be having that issue if there weren't underlying issues, because they would be able to cope with the pandemic if there were no underlying issues. But the reason why they're feeling overwhelmed is because this is one more thing now that they have to deal with on top of everything else. So it's kind of like a balancing act. And you can imagine holding on to these glass plates and they're already wobbling and they're heavy and you're tired, but somehow you've learned how to manage to balance them. And you've learned that that's the balancing act your life has become, that you've got these 100 plates and they're always wobbling and they always have to be held in a certain way. And then you add one more plate.
Yeah.
And that's what might tip you.
Yes.
So everything can fall apart. And I see that clients who've literally been at the edge of their balancing act, if you can call it that, are the ones who are not able to cope with the pandemic because it's just too much. It's too much. And there is no outlet for them to go and take a break from it.
Agreed. So do you have any simple tips? Because see, the simple thing is that, of course, approaching coaches like you will help. And of course, you have online availability, so you could coach folks like that. Or do you have any simple tips that somebody can adopt in such situations? That, okay, do-it-yourself kit, DIY kit.
Yes, I can. I do have them. And I can tell you as well what my clients have told me, what my friends and family members have told me. It's not rocket science. If it was that simple, everybody would do it. And I wouldn't be feeling what I'm feeling. That, you know what I mean? Simple tips are the most effective. It's the basis on which our human mind works. It's the simplest concept. But somehow we complicate this. As I said, for the wife with the cooking problem, she could have just gone and spoken to her husband. But what did she do? She didn't do that. She got frustrated. She started fighting with him. She stopped sleeping. She actually called me because she said, I can't sleep at night. What's wrong with me? And that led to my husband's cooking, and that's really bothering me. So it's never really what you think it is. The symptom can show up in any way. And then so the easiest thing really to do, and I think heartfulness, mindfulness is the most important thing. It's the basis of what I tell all my clients to focus on. Go and ask yourself some tough questions. So as I said, if we go back to the example I gave with the monster, it could be that tiny. It could be this tiny little thing that you can just banish away, that will have absolutely no influence in your life whatsoever. But because you're not asking yourself the right questions, you don't know what the problem is. So the first thing I would say is self-assessment. Whatever you're feeling, you first need to accept that this is what I'm feeling. So if it's anxiety, and I see with anxiety especially, and stress, these two words are overused in the world today. So I have had clients who just use that label. And there's a big difference here. You are feeling anxious. You are not an anxious person. You are a kind person, you are a loving, I love those labels. But saying somehow when they say, you know what, I suffer from anxiety, I'm an anxious person. So they're giving themselves almost like a green light to say, it's okay. I get anxious about every situation in my life. I can't do anything about it. And I think that's the first thing, that yes, you can do something about it. So no, you do not have to suffer any negative emotion in your life. Yes, you will suffer it because there are things that happen externally, but you do not have to continue suffering it. You know, if something happens to your loved one, you are going to feel pain. But that's not the end of your life, and you can move ahead from there. So with regards to this situation, the first most important question to ask yourself is, what are you feeling? And define that emotion. And people mix emotions because they only understand sometimes fear, anger, stress, and they don't know the range of emotions. So sometimes it could be sadness. So really, through meditation, through your heartfulness and mindfulness, the most important thing is to be able to go within yourself and truly ask yourself, what am I feeling? The coaches help here, or a professional helps here, because they don't accept your answer. The first answer you'll give me, and they'll say, oh, I'm angry. And I'll be like, no, let's go deeper. Unless I feel like I've gotten to the core of a problem. But if somebody is good at being able to do that for themselves, then that is where they would start, is to define the emotion first. And that emotion, if you can imagine that is the tip that you can hold on to. It's like a little thread. You start pulling on that thread and start seeing in your meditation, your mindful state, where is that leading? What's next? Where's that taking you to? So the next thing would be like, I'm really, really upset, going back to the example of the lady with the cooking husband. And it's like, okay, I'm not sleeping. And that's really making me feel not like myself. And then you pull that thread and it's like, okay, why are you not sleeping? Because I'm eating really late at night and my whole schedule has gone upside down. Why are you doing that? And, as you pull on that thread, you come to a simple solution, or it's not a solution, but you come to the root cause. And now you look at how you want to deal with that root cause. And I feel an open, loving, honest conversation is the easiest and best way, because we make assumptions. Oh, if I say this to my husband, he will get upset. And you're trying to go into the mind of the opposite person. Whereas if you just go from a place of love and say, if you're not going to criticize him and you're not going to blame him and you're not going to, say, this is all because of you, this is happening to me. You just say, can we do something about this? You realize 9 times out of 10, the person would be like, yeah, absolutely. Why didn't you tell me? And that's where the simple solutions really, really work, that we make assumptions and we react to our assumptions instead of reacting to our emotions and saying, let me go and try. Let me go and put my case forward in the most genuine way that I can and see how the opposite person responds. Now, you could get a negative response from that person. That person could turn around and say, you know what, you're always complaining. This is you. This is always, I do something good for you and you always criticize me and nothing is good enough for you. Now that's another layer. To a coach, to me, that's another layer, because now the husband has issues. So there's something going on in that relationship that when you dig, you always find out that the root cause lies somewhere else. People feel, and I think the most common things that I hear is people don't feel appreciated in relationships. They don't feel like they're heard, their voice is heard, like when their opinions have any value. They feel misunderstood. So all of these things create this relationship chaos because we make assumptions. So if I feel misunderstood, I will react to what I feel rather than what is reality, because I do not have the capacity to understand what is real anymore. Everything, almost like if I wear rose-colored glasses, everything will look, red to me. So you see your relationship through the filter that you have on. And sometimes all of the times, it's the great way to kind of get to the bottom of this is always to start with yourself. What am I seeing? And is what I'm seeing real? Am I really misunderstood? Am I understanding that person the way I want to be understood? Am I misunderstanding and thinking my husband always criticizes me because that's what he thinks about me? So I think just having that conversation with yourself and kind of pulling on that string leads to some wonderful perspectives.
Wonderful, Kanchan. So, I mean, as you were speaking about this, there's simple practices that normally I take up with heartfulness. There's a concept called heartfulness cleaning to remove the impressions of the past, how to even change our perspective, right? The example that you gave about the rose-colored glasses, right? How do I remove them? It's a very simple practice that helps. And as you said, heartfulness, mindfulness, etc. So simple practices can, on a regular basis, we practice that can really help us on a regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that is the key, the regular practice, because somehow when I have clients who come to me and, we do all the work and their life gets better and their relationships get better because they've got new perspectives, they've kind of done the work on themselves and they've changed themselves. And that change, it almost has a ripple effect, right? So when you change yourself, things around you, because people are reading your energy all the time. It's like you walk into a room and your wife is sitting over there seething with anger. She hasn't said a word. And that, you walk in and it's like, what do you want? What did I do now? The person hasn't said anything, but you're reading their energy, their body language. So the ripple effect that happens when you change yourself for the positive, everyone can feel it and everyone can see it. And so I have these clients who, have this great amount of success. And then they come back a few months later and they say, why am I feeling this again? Why am I having these problems again? I was like, okay, are you still doing all the work? No, but I did the work then. So when you did the work then, you got the results then, and things started to change. And you can't just stop doing the work. You have to continue working so that you continue having more and more and more success. And you go, from one level to the next, and it just becomes part of your DNA and who you are. You can't it's like saying, I went to the gym, I lost 10 kgs, and you know what? My 10 kgs are never coming back. It doesn't work that way. Mental health doesn't work that way either. You have to keep doing the work because you've seen the results. You've seen what results you can get by changing yourself. So you know what that is. Now that you are capable. So the client can't come back to me and saying like, I have a no excuse policy. A client comes to me and says, oh, but I can't. And I'm like, I won't move. I won't say anything. I won't engage with them. And I'd be like, they know that because we've been through that in the past, and they'll listen to themselves the first time and then be like, oh, okay, I'm making excuses. I get it. So it's like muscle memory, right? Your mind knows. You've installed those programs. You've upgraded your old programs that are not working. You do not have any more excuses to say, my mom did this to me. My kids did this to me. No. We've dealt with all of that. The past has been dealt with. That's okay. You have the capacity now you've upgraded yourself. But you will still be obsolete. Like the new iPhone, no matter how many times I upgrade, in a year's time, it's going to become obsolete. So I have to keep upgrading my apps. I have to keep upgrading, my phone sometimes. So that is something that they need to learn, because that's the first shock. After the success, when they have their first failure, that comes as a very big shock for most people.
Correct. And this is interesting. You touched upon a very interesting topic, right? So Taji, the current global guide of heartfulness, right? He gives this example, scientific example of entropy, how we need to input regularly into that energy field to keep it going.
Absolutely.
The constant work that we have to work on ourselves is a must. Otherwise, you cannot just sit back and relax. It is simple things that we need to, once we learned, just continue working at entropy.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And it's a change in the way you live. It's not something that, you could come and say, you know what, my problem got sorted. And so I don't need to do the work. That's fine. And most cases that problem might not come back. So there could be a possibility that you came to me for a problem that you were having with one specific person in your life. And that problem is solved because you did the work and you changed your perspective on how you saw that person. But there could be another relationship in your life that can cause that kind of concern and that kind of chaos. You know, unless you kind of apply that approach to say, this is how I'm going to see things now. So I'm not just going to be kind to this person. Like, people have issues with their in-laws, they have issues with their kids, they have issues with their siblings, bosses, colleagues, you know, anybody. And when you show them the perspective to say, is this really how the person is, or is this how you're seeing the person? So going back to quantum physics, you know, the biggest thing that struck out for me was be an observer. And in quantum physics, there are theories and there are experiments that show that the way you see the same thing changes depending on where you're standing. And it also changes the minute you start to observe it. And that is best applied in relationships.
Yes.
You know, and one of the ways that I apply it with relationships specifically is, if you are an observer of your own life, and let's say you're having a problem with your husband, and you observe the person, you ask yourself the question, who is observing and who am I observing? So when you answer the question, somehow that whole experiment just collapses. Because the minute you say, I, the wife, this person, you have labeled yourself. And you're no longer the observer, you are the person. When you look at who you're observing, you don't look at a human being. You say, I am observing this man who is my husband. And so therefore, because you've given him that label, you expect him to behave in a certain way. Because if he was just any other man, you probably would not have these expectations. But because you've labeled him and said, he is my husband and I want him to behave this way with me, the chaos that's happening in the relationship comes when those expectations are not met. And you're in pain because he is not giving you what you want. Now, when you go to him, his perspective can be completely different. Yes. He is only doing that because you are not giving him what he wants. And so when you look at that in terms of relationships, if you can't change yourself, then how can you ever change someone else? And so that's why we always talk about, you know, I don't like using the word self-love anymore, because again, it's so overused, like stress and anxiety, that people don't even understand what it means. But it's the same thing as saying that, you know, people are very mean to themselves. If you hear some of the internal dialogues we have with ourselves, and relationship with self is some of the things that I work with, people say some of the meanest things to themselves that they would never say to someone else. And somehow, because it's an internal dialogue, they believe that it's okay to do that. It's okay to kind of have this conversation because somehow it's the truth. But they would never say it out loud. And self-love comes from understanding purely what love means. Because if I ask someone to give me 1 crore rupees and they don't have it, they know other people who have it. They know how other people who have it live and what they feel having that money, but they don't have it. So they have an idea of what having 1 crore would be like, but they don't know it themselves. So they can't give it to me. How can I love somebody else when I can't love myself? When I don't understand the concept. So we take on other people's concepts of love. So if you had a very strict parent, for example, for you, love might mean discipline. I love my kids, but I have to be strict with them. That's the only way I know of showing love. So you sometimes take on someone else's rule book. And I think in relationships, in anything that we do, that's the most important thing. You have to start with yourself. You have to define what you are able to feel for yourself, to experience that emotion first. And then you can give it. because otherwise you're just giving an idea or a concept that someone else has told you. What it might feel like if I loved myself, I think this is what love feels like. Because my mother used to love me and I know my mother loves me, but this is how she used to love me. So this is the way I'm going to love my kids. But when you love yourself, you understand a sense of happiness that no one can explain to you. And so that's how you love others. And I feel like, sorry, I know we've gone completely off topic in terms of space and no space, but
it's perfectly the topic.
All right.
Yes, yes.
So I just feel like most of the things are important to look at, from our perspective, and see what we are not giving ourselves because we are somehow expecting it from someone else. That also works. The perspective I see where this is concerned is in terms of people being very harsh with the ones that they love, because they feel, you know what, I was tough. I studied under a lamp. I didn't have the luxuries you had. You have no idea how easy your life is. So you know what? You don't get to complain to me. And I feel like the person who you love is an individual. They don't have to go through your hardships to earn the right to feel pain. They don't have to live your life. And just because you survived it and they can't survive it, it doesn't mean that they're weaker than you are, because different things affect different people in different ways. So I feel like where self-love is concerned, it's extremely important to be able to understand what love is by loving yourself. But where some of the other emotions are concerned, when you apply the same principle, and this is why I don't like to give like a one solution fits all, in terms of, I didn't feel fear and I went through so much in my life. My son should not feel fear because he needs to be a real man, and we project those things on our children, on our other loved ones, on our parents, on, my mother never loved me because she didn't do these things for me. And that's what, in the movies that I've seen or from my friends that I've seen, this is what a mother should be like. So I feel, and the mother would be like, from a completely different perspective, doing whatever she can and whatever her concept of love is. So the language of love gets very mixed up in relationships. And there aren't enough conversations, open, honest conversations that we are having to be able to get through that, because we are just reacting to our assumptions. And one of the things that I was talking to one of my clients yesterday, actually, to say that your thoughts originate from you. They exist somewhere within you. And they create this emotion, and you get a physical symptom. So when you're angry, you could shake, or you could have breathlessness, or you could feel choked. So that's a physical symptoms. And somehow, because you have a physical symptom, your thought becomes real. Because apparently there's a connection we've made that if the thought wasn't real, I wouldn't feel this physical symptom, because the physical symptom is real. Look, my hands are shaking. Look, I can't breathe. Look, something's happening to me. You go to the doctor and, he checks you up and he says, you're perfectly fine. There's nothing physically wrong with you. It's like, no, but I'm feeling this inside. And what you don't realize is the feeling is real. You're experiencing a real physical symptom, but the thought is not real. Because when I change my thought, my feeling changes. So I can look at the same person and I can change the way I think about them, and I can feel differently for them. So what is real? Real is just perspective. Real is just where I'm standing today. And we know from enough studies that when you are in a happy emotional state and you look at your life, you look at your entire past, you kind of say, you know what, it wasn't such a bad life. I had some tough times and things were a bit difficult, but it wasn't so bad. But when you are in a negative emotional state, when you are angry or you are in pain, you look at that same life and you say, I have suffered so much. Every step of the way I have suffered. So it alters your perception of what has actually happened. It alters your memory of the past. So your past is like moving. It's a constantly moving river almost. That never stays the same because your memory of your past can change depending on your current state. So it comes to how real is anything.
I mean, it's absolutely, why it pass even today. If I'm happy, everything looks green, everything looks rosy, birds sing nicely. And if I'm unhappy, the bird cooing irritates me, the small thing, breeze irritates me. It's as simple as that. So
exactly.
Again, the inner really is reflected from outside.
Absolutely. And that is, and what I tell my clients is you calibrate yourself. And the way you calibrate yourself is you'd really look at what you're feeling. You know, you sit down and you look at something and you say, is my husband irritating me? Or am I generally feeling irritated and I'm removing my irritation on him? Or is my child annoying me all of a sudden? Because for a mother, like, I would give my liver, my kidney, my heart, my life for you. And this is the same person you're like, you know what? I can't tolerate it. You're making too much noise. Stop yelling. Get out of my room. So it's the same thing. It's because of what you're feeling, and it's not your child causing it or you being a bad mother or you changing, you know, the way you feel about your child. It's just what you're going through at that moment. When you can calibrate that, you just feel like, okay, I'm fine. I know I'm going through maybe a low vibration of energy. I'm not feeling, I have a lot of people who are into astrology, who are into kind of the movement of the moon. And, you know, they talk about all kinds of different energy levels. So I am an energy healer myself. So I get it and I understand it and I have experienced it. There are days where my thoughts will just take me into a direction I don't want to go. But when you realize that that's not real, you don't have to react to it. You let it pass through you. And when you let it pass through you, it goes a lot faster. The thing is that thoughts have power and they feed off your energy. So if a thought is passing through you and one of them really hurts you and you decide in your moment of weakness, that one's real, you start feeding it and then it becomes real. And then the more you feed it over time, it starts controlling you. It starts telling you who you are. You're an anxious person. You're a stressful person. You don't know how to deal with things. You're not good enough. You're not lovable. You know, your life is never going to be okay. You're always unlucky in love. You know, nobody understands you because you're so difficult. You're not easy to talk to. You're not easy to live with. That voice becomes louder than our other thoughts. And we can't overpower it. And that's when people start feeling overwhelmed because they say, make this voice stop. And it's like, whose voice is it? It's like, it's mine. It's like, then make it stop yourself. And it's like, but I can't. So now who can? And then we drug ourselves and we go through a lot more pain because we just want a quick fix. And I feel like things like meditation, mindfulness, it's just a longer process. But it gets to the root cause of your problems. It makes you understand, you know, who you truly are. And when I got involved in the quantum realm and realized that you can either limit yourself as this body that you're in, or you can be energy that's just part of the universe that's in this body. So who you connect with and how you connect is how you see yourself.
Nice. I mean, I can connect this to our topic that of the day. So, in effect, what I'm hearing from you is when you are comfortable within yourself, with yourself, there's always space of love. And when that is there, you will never feel suffocated that I don't have space. As simple as that. I mean, am I going the right way?
Bottom line, absolutely. It's not the size of the room that you are in that matters, that's causing you the problems. It's this thing, the room in your head that's causing you the problems.
Yeah.
Because these are the people you love and you are safe with them. And, it's how you want to see the situation. So I always ask them, are you stuck at home or are you safe at home? Is really going out what you want, or are you trying to run away from something? And getting to the root cause of the problem. Yes, we can fix this very quickly. I can give one or two things, but if you really, really want to fix it, then you have to look at your relationships and yourself and what you're really going through at the end of the day.
And the one thing that you mentioned about being aware, being a witness, I like that topic.
Thank you.
I mean, of late, I've been hearing Raji also talking about being a witness, the witness paradox. It's a lovely article he has written at daji.org. You can check it out.
Sure.
Witness paradox. It's a wonderful thing. And with this, there's another thing. So when we are witnessing, see, you can observe, we can observe our thought patterns as well, right?
Yes.
So that awareness when I'm in a negative frame of mind, when I'm creating a negative energy or thought coming. So one technique that Babuji Maharaj, the founder president of Heartfulness, he said is the moment you become aware that I'm creating a negative thought, immediately counter it with a positive thought.
Absolutely.
You nullify it, maybe you can enhance that positive power and maybe make it positive. So that works wonders. And
absolutely, because the power is in the awareness.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest problem people have is thinking they have no control and they have no choice and life is happening to them and somehow they can't control anything. And then when you show them that if a negative thought comes in, what happens if we just turn it around with a positive thought? But can I dare to kind of do that? So why not? Let's try. Something. So if you're anxious, and we do that as part of our anxiety exercise, is that if you're anxious that you're going to have a negative outcome for an event that's coming up. How about we think that something positive is going to happen instead? Because what if that negative thing doesn't happen and you just worried all this time and you stressed yourself out and you broke your body? Stress has, we know this, and it's been studied, it's been experienced by everybody. Doctors have been telling us over and over again, stress will break down your body. You are going to end up being sick, physically sick. So you could have aches, pains, arthritis, heart trouble, all kinds of illnesses because of your stressful thinking, because you're putting too much strain on the body to constantly flood you with negative emotions. Right? And that is going to cause a chemical reaction in your body where it's going to stop your organs from doing what they're supposed to be doing. The simple side of it, the way I see it. And so when you say that, what's the point? If you have to think about something, why not make it positive? It's like, but what if that doesn't happen? It's like, are you absolutely sure the negative is going to happen? Well, no, but still, so then if you have, so this is how I say it, in the absence of absolute knowing, if you have to make a choice, why not make a positive one?
Perfect. Interesting thing, see, if you see some highly successful people in life, I was watching a Netflix series on Michael Jordan,
Mm-hmm.
Dance, right? And in that he says, I never think that my shot will not go in. Why should I even think about a shot that I have not taken yet?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Because the mind, and when we work and in hypnosis, when we work on the unconscious mind and you bypass your conscious mind and you say that, give me a signal for yes by moving your finger, and your finger moves, right? Because I am talking to your unconscious mind and you are not conscious, and I'll ask you, did you move your finger? And you're like, no, I didn't move my finger. And your finger moves. Your finger literally moves, right? Because I'm talking directly to your unconscious mind. So when your unconscious mind has negative thoughts, it moves your body to do what you're telling it to do. If my unconscious mind believes I can't make the shot, it will make sure that my body adjusts itself to make the error so I don't make the shot. It's literally mind over body. Your body achieves what the mind believes. And this is why people who have achieved crazy things, like beyond our imagination, we feel like, oh, you know what? I just can't stop thinking negatively, and I can't, bring in a positive thought. Like, that's minor. And you look at the kind of stuff, people are going to Mars. Can you imagine the thought process of someone who first said, I want to build this machine? Like, where do you even start? You have a blank piece of paper and you have an idea that I want to go there. And then where do you start? You can't just have the idea. You have to think of, how am I going to get there? What kind of problems and challenges am I going to face? Yes, I'm going to fall and I'm going to fail over and over and over again. I expect that. It's the people who succeed at that level, failure is part of their plan. So they don't like say, oh, I failed, so I need to stop. They're like, okay, I failed, so I need to go in another direction. It's not, for some people, failure is a huge wall that they can never get over. And for some people, it's like a tiny stumbling block, just giving them the signal from the universe or from anyone saying, not this direction, go another way, don't waste your time here, try something different. So it's up to you how you see it, and then everything still comes back to the mind. You can stop, and you're never going to be in a better place than where you are today. So I have clients who come and say, but this is too hard. It's like, okay, let's future pace. Let's imagine you're doing the same thing 1 year from now. And they'd be like, no, I can't live another day. It's like, but if you do nothing, you are going to be living another day, doing exactly the same thing, going through exactly the same pain with no change whatsoever. So you decide what you want to do. You want to stay the same. Life is not going to, I mean, like, we all wish that we had this genie and with a magic lamp and we just asked for a wish and, we got it. We don't want to do the work. So a lot of people who come to me, I'm like, okay, you know what you want. So what I'm hearing is you just don't want to do the work to get there. And that's when they hear it for the first time. And they realize, yeah, actually, I can get there. I'm just not doing what I need to do. And that comes down to perspective. It comes down to thinking. It comes down to thought. You can change whatever you want to change. You're constantly making a choice of what you want to believe in. So I do agree that some people do go through a lot of trauma, and there are a lot of things that come into their life for no fault of theirs. And they go through a lot of pain, but there is still a way to get out of it, because they still have a life to live ahead of that. And when you are living the trauma, you're basically reliving that same thing over and over again. So it's almost like you are stuck in time and you can't move forward. And no matter how painful you think it's going to be to let that go, it's a lot more painful to stay where you are. So definitely, move, do what you need to do, and believe that you deserve better. You deserve happiness. You deserve to, live this amazingly fulfilling, wonderful life. You just have to work for it.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing all your perspective. Wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And sure, we'll catch up sometime again. Kanchan.
Sure.
And with this, we can conclude our webinar. And here it is. So what should I say? Really deeply grateful to you for your
Thank you
wonderful
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.